A rising generation of Republicans of color. Two of the GOP's freshmen in Congress tell their political stories and explain why Democrats can't take Black and Hispanic voters for granted. When I look at the Republican Party right now, yeah, there's still a lot of white guys in there, says Texas Representative Wesley Hunt, a few weeks after being sworn in as a freshman member of Congress. But it ain't the party that it was 20 years ago, when I was watching C-SPAN at West Point. Mr. Hunt, who won a House seat in Houston last year, is a 41-year-old millennial Apache helicopter pilot and Cornell M.B.A. He's just come from the congressional gym, which isn't hard to believe given the look of the white shirt sleeves erupting from his suit vest. If there's ever a scuffle in Congress, the way South Korea's parliament sometimes descends into a brawl, a betting man could do worse than to put it all on Wesley Hunt. He's also a Black Republican, and no apologies if saving that detail until the third paragraph feels like journalistic malpractice. A lot of Black people, and a lot of people in general, assume that your number one thing is your identity of being Black. It's like 10th for me, Mr. Hunt says. He's a father, a husband, a combat veteran, and now a congressman. Race is not his favorite subject. I want to get to the point to where we stop talking about it at all. By the data, the GOP is taking small steps in that direction. The 2022 elections doubled the number of Black Republicans in the House, from 2 to 4. The other arriving plebe is Mr. Hunt's West Point classmate, Michigan Representative John James. The Associated Press Votecast survey says 14% of Black voters supported Republicans in November, up from 8% 4 years earlier. Several Latino freshmen also helped give House Republicans their majority. They include Representative Juan Ciscomani, 40, who was born in Mexico, moved to Tucson, Arizona, at age 11, and took the citizenship oath in 2006, a few years after spending a summer in Washington as an intern for the late Arizona Representative Ed Pastor. I had a green card last time I came here, Mr. Ciscomani says in a separate interview, and now I have a green button. He gestures at his official lapel pin, which identifies members of Congress. Exit polls say 39% of Latino voters went GOP last year, up from 29% in 2018. Can the party keep these trends going? Some of my barbers, Mr. Hunt says, and I won't mention their names, went from never Trump to now I walk in there, and they say, please tell me he's running. They don't like everything about former President Trump, but they miss his economy, before the squeeze of inflation and last year's $5 gas. If the Republican Party can get 20% of the Black vote, Democrats can't win, Mr. Hunt says. Black men are moving. Given population trends, Republicans need to keep Arizona in contention. After the 2020 census, the state fell only 80,000 residents short of gaining a 10th House seat and a 12th electoral vote. With 6 kids, Mr. Ciscomani jokes that he's doing his part. Honda might want to consider a campaign contribution, the way he raves about his Odyssey minivan, which has cameras inside the car, so you can be like, stop fighting. And you can go zoom in and be like, I see you. He says. It's got an installed vacuum in there. I feel like, how cool is that, man? Mr. Ciscomani's territory includes roughly 25 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border, and in his view security is the priority. For Pima County, the county that I live in, fentanyl overdose is now the #1 leading cause of death among young people, he says. He wants to hire more border agents, while making life uncomfortable for Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, saying he has failed utterly in his job, and he needs to be held accountable. Beyond that, Mr. Ciscomani says ports of entry need to be renovated to speed international commerce. He cites Arizona's trade with Mexico as $17 billion a year, and in some U.S. border towns, Mexican tourism is over 80% of their sales tax revenue. The crush at the border also stymies immigrants who are trying to go through the system in the way that the law is written, when the asylum-seeking process is being abused. Mr. Ciscomani wants an immigration system that actually reflects the needs of our country, which brings us back to America as a shining city on a hill. His father was a bus driver, and he recalls helping make ends meet by going with his dad on weekends to wash cars in affluent areas. "I was looking at these houses, thinking, I don't belong here. This is another world," he says. "We used to live in a 2-bedroom apartment." Last year when he opened a campaign office, his dad asked if he'd noticed it was 2 blocks from where they washed cars. And then, Mr. Siscomani recounts, he said his favorite phrase, "Only in America." What also struck Mr. Siscomani was how much his family's history resonated with voters whose own immigrant ancestors are out of living memory. "This happened so many times," he says. "People will come up afterward and say, 'Your story is my story.' And I'm like, 'Really, tell me your story.' And they would, and their story was nothing like my story." Even so, he understood what they meant. "The thing is that they found themselves in the story of opportunity," he says, "whether they came here a generation ago or 5 ago.